Welcome to CarePod, a safe place to educate, inspire, and renew the caregiver. Listen in with our host, Dr. Kiplee Bell, as she interviews different experts along the caregiving journey.
So happy to be here today. Welcome to my CarePod audience. I have a special guest, Rashonda Ambrose. She's a senior living advisor. So really excited to dig in on what that means specifically to families, for options in care of the older adult person. She represents Oasis, which helps her to carry out these initiatives for families specifically. So welcome so much. Thank you for being my guest here on the CarePod. Rashonda, thank you so much for being here with me.
So happy to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Yes. So one thing on the CarePod we like to do is ask our guests their why. You know, what brought you to the space of the older adult person? What drives you? And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of, the actual caregiver placement.
Okay. Well, it's a question I get asked often, and it's always one that's hard to answer because I'm thinking over the last 10, 20, 30 years, it's been that long since I've been in the workforce, and trying to just sort of simplify and synthesize everything that I've gone through personally and professionally that's led me here. I think when I think about my why, probably easiest for me to answer as like, why do I get up every day and commit to doing this work? I'm always wanting to be in service to others. So that's a common thread through my professional experiences is helping others. And the work that I do now as a senior living advisor, I am helping adults navigate through some pretty complicated scenarios involving an older adult, a loved one, could be a spouse, could be a parent, a grandmother. And I think of it as this, people get sort of dropped into the middle of the woods in the dark, in the middle of the night, without a GPS, without a map, without a compass, and are told in 24 hours, find your way out. And I've had the privilege of sort of being the light and the guidance and helping people sort of problem solve and navigate and find themselves through this journey. So, the ability every day to just wake up and see who needs help and have an opportunity to help someone in a really difficult situation, it's what keeps me going. It can be emotionally draining work, right? But to spare someone the feeling of being alone, overwhelmed, confused, stressed, that keeps me fulfilled. It's like coffee. It keeps me going. And, in everyone's family, I think mine as well. My grandmother passed in 2020 with Alzheimer's. So my family had to navigate a journey. So we're all in one way or another, touched with sort of being dropped in the woods, right? Put it in an unexpected situation, and sort of having to navigate through it when it comes to senior care. And I think everything I've gone through has led me to this point, and I'm really grateful and thankful I get to do this work.
Yeah, it's an honor, right? To be
It is.
able to be a transparent leader to say, hey, I've been where you're at and how can I help serve your family? It's an amazing journey. So tell me what that looks like. We're in the woods. We need a compass. Families often say, like, I just don't know what to do. At what point does a senior advisor show up? What is the touch point? What is the workflow, if you will, at which point you're introduced to families to help them navigate circumstances?
It's a great question. And so I'll give you a couple of examples to bring to life the kinds of, calls an Oasis senior advisor, could receive at any point in time. So just imagine, I'm going to call her Stacy. That's who popped into my head. Stacy is a mom. She has school-aged children. She herself works full time. So she's running her household, caring for her children, trying to be a good employee, and finds herself getting a call that her mother's been rushed to the hospital, right? Mom lives maybe 45 minutes away, has lived on her own. Neighbor found her on the floor and right in the bathroom. And now that sort of, it sets off a chain. So she broke something, she's hospital, rehab, rehab lets Stacy know your mom's getting discharged in a week. What's the plan? And Stacy's like, I don't know. You tell me what's the plan, right? But what the plan really is for the family to figure out, the staff at the facility may help to execute it, right? To help with that discharge process. But they are looking to that adult daughter, Stacy in this case, or the POA to say, where would you like her to go? Is she going back to her home? Is she going to your home? Is she going to assisted living? And Stacey says, well, I don't know. I'm not home during the day. I'm at work. And then I have to get my kids to see the tutor and to basketball and to cheerleading. And then it's dinner and then it's bedtime and then repeat for 5 days, right? So no one is here to take care of my mom. So what are my options, right? And calling maybe a facility who's trying to care for hundreds of patients to try to get some help. What are my options? Can't get someone on the phone fast enough. And you're seeing the days whittle down before that discharge is supposed to happen. So we often get a call in sort of the midst of that chaos, in the midst of that crisis, where Stacey says, here's what's happening, and I don't know what to do. And that's it. That's where she is. It's just, this has happened. They're discharging my mom in a week, and I don't know what to do. And I can't take care of her. I want to, but I can't. She can't go back home. What are my options? So, that might be an example. We could get, a spouse who would call us. And let's just say, for the sake of conversation, it's the well spouse is the wife. Her husband has dementia, right? And he's in his early 70s, and he was an attorney, or he was a scientist, he was an accountant, and the person he was is not the person he is now. And what they're doing in their 70s is not the dream that they had for how they would be living their retirement, right? And so she's not only dealing with the clinical complications of this devastating disease, she's grieving the loss of a relationship, right? And who he was, and now who she is, wife, but now caregiver. That's not what she, again, unexpectedly just dropped in the woods, right? There's no plan, there's no map. And how do I navigate? I thought we would be traveling the world. I thought we would be caring for I can't see my grandkids as much because I'm taking care of him. What do I do? And in those kinds of conversations, it's not just the care conversation, but it's even just emotionally how she feels about even having to make this decision, right? There's an enormous amount of, what's my obligation? What is it that I want to do? What is it that he wants me to do? In trying to think through all of those pieces, and the guilt of being confronted with, well, for my lifestyle, it would be best to place my husband. But is that me being selfish? If I were to do, so
incredible.
We
it's
encounter
incredible.
all aspects, but those are the kinds of calls that we could get at any point in time of the day. Real people dealing with real situations, often in crisis, and needing to make life decisions in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally running patients through my head as you speak that need these services. Incredible. So, of course, the biggest question is, how is this service paid, satisfied? You walk through the many layers in terms of either in-home or out-home, out-of-home support, aging in place, mental health, nutrition. What does all of this look like from an insurance standpoint or payment from the patient's behalf, or the caregiver's behalf, I should say?
Great question. Because finances, of course, in healthcare, right, come into play, and there's Medicare and Medicaid and private pay and out of pocket. The good news is that engaging an Oasis Senior Advisor is absolutely free. There is no cost. We are a free resource to seniors and to families. And so then the question normally comes from my clients, okay, if you're not a nonprofit and you're not charging me, how are you keeping the lights on? How does this work? So that's a question we often get. How does this work? Who is paying for this service? So we contract with senior living communities, independent living, assisted living, memory care communities that essentially compensate Oasis Senior Advisors for the time that they've spent providing services guidance, consultation with families, that if our efforts result in a placement to one of those communities, they essentially compensate us, right? So the interesting piece about it, though, is that we don't know what the outcome is going to be when our phone rings. And we are obligated to answer when the phone rings and to provide support when that phone rings. So regardless of whether someone is going to age in place in their own home, in their own residence, and maybe bring in a private duty aide, or there's a relative providing care, or in a case where someone is going to a senior living community, no matter what the outcome is, because we never know that until we get in the thick of it, we will help under any circumstance. If we get calls for someone that is low income or Medicaid pending or Medicaid approved, in any scenario, our job is to leave that individual, to leave that family in a better place than before they called. So we help anyone that calls us who has questions and is looking for advice on senior care options.
Amazing.
What if your next breakthrough didn't come from pushing harder, but from pausing long enough to remember who you are? This November, we invite you to heal, fill, pour. An intentional space for leaders, clinicians, and caregivers to breathe, reflect, and align. Come rest on purpose.
Amazing. So tell me about the patient and family in that quagmire. I've had situations where, wow, this family member, this person, this spouse was, a teacher for decades, and they have what they thought to be was this great insurance plan, but now it doesn't really cover their needs as it pertains to caregiving their spouse who has Alzheimer's. What about those middle of the road people where they don't actually fit a good box in terms of either Medicaid or Medicare plans? They're in a Medicare Advantage that may not cover certain items, et cetera.
Yeah, it's a great question. So part of our consultations is to understand the financial picture, and to help families understand what things would go through insurance versus what things might be out of pocket. We are, however, not financial advisors. We're not Medicaid or Medicaid specialists. We can provide some general guidance on those things. But the beauty of an Oasis Senior Advisor is that we have an incredible Rolodex. I don't even think people know. Is this a Rolodex? Does a Rolodex exist anymore? But you know what I mean. We have an extensive network, right? So we are all very focused on our individual, we're localized, right? So we're specialists in what's available in our states and then even more specifically in our counties. So within that, we have networks of Medicare specialists, Medicaid specialists, long-term care specialists. So we don't answer questions that we don't have the expertise in. But if someone has a question about their Medicare plan, then we say, you know what, we've got someone you should talk to. And also they will do a complimentary consultation. If we have someone who's trying to understand, I have a long-term care, well, my parent has a long-term care insurance benefit. They've never used it. I don't understand even how to read it. Can it be used for assisted living? Can it be used for home care? Can it be used for nursing home? We say, we've got a person. We have a long-term care insurance specialist that we trust, that we've worked with, that our families have raved about. Give them a call, they'll review your policy, and they'll give you guidance on next steps. So typically, if it's something that we can't address, we have such a comprehensive network that we're able to get people connected to the right person to answer that very specific question when it comes to finances. Placement is an area where we really specialize. So when families have questions about how do I pay for assisted living? Can I afford assisted living? Does it go through insurance? Those kinds of questions, we can answer those sorts of questions to help families understand how to fund that, various funding sources. But anything where someone needs to go really, really, really deep into a particular area, veterans benefits, we have a partner that we would connect them with.
Incredible. And are you nationwide?
We are. I want to say that we are in 35 states at this point,
That's
about
incredible.
35. Yeah, so we have really, really good coverage. And on our website, there is a place where you can punch in a zip code and it will get you connected to the advisor that is closest to the area you're looking in.
Love that. Love that. Love that. So, tell me about the veterans piece. You touched on that briefly. So, does Oasis partner with like tri-care options or specific? Do you have a veteran specialist that you partner with?
So I'll tell you what we encounter most often with regard to veterans benefits. Sadly, a lot of the veterans that we encounter are not aware of a benefit called the aid and attendance benefit, which is a benefit that, if eligible for it, it acts almost just as additional income, and that income can be used towards home care expenses or it can be used to sort of fill a gap in funding needed for assisted living. A lot of families haven't heard of that benefit. They don't know if their loved one is eligible for it. They don't know the process for applying for it. Our sister company, Elder Life Financial, actually specializes. They have a team of experts who are well versed, very knowledgeable in anything and everything that has to do with that benefit, and can help families navigate through that process, starting with helping them to understand if they're eligible for it. So part of our intake process is to sort of go through a very thorough checklist of questions where sometimes, right, we're asking, is the client that we're, looking to provide support for, is he a veteran? Okay, because we want to make sure that that senior gets every single benefit that they are entitled to. So it is a question that we ask, and we ask knowing that we have a partner within our own company that we can connect them with that can help them navigate through that process. So we don't get involved necessarily with TRICARE from the health insurance perspective, but what we would encounter most often as Oasis Senior Advisors are veterans looking to leverage that aid and attendance benefit to help with their care needs, using that additional income if they're eligible for it for home care or for placement.
Amazing. So, what do you say to the patient and or their family, or let me back that up. What do you say to the person maybe that hasn't come to the woods yet? You know, to say, you know what? I want to be able to see the forest for the trees. Like I want to be able to understand this and prepare ahead of time. What do you say to that person? Oftentimes I find myself, even when I speak to the 30 something young woman that, might be an only daughter, that is, none of these topics are hot topics in their brain at the time, but will be ever present at some point as maybe the sole caregiver for their mother. So, how do you encourage that person to say, do you ever hold workshops or webinars on behalf of Oasis to say, hey, these are offerings, or these are offerings that we have for your parents to consider?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, at least for my team, I feel that 90% of our calls are from individuals in a moment of crisis.
Yeah,
We would love more proactive calls. People just saying, I don't need it yet. I just want to know, how does this
yeah,
work and what is
yeah,
available? I mean, these are topics that people don't want to make eye contact with if they don't have to, right? It's some things, these are just some topics that you just avoid for many
yeah,
different reasons, right?
yeah.
We do, as part of the work that we do, in addition to helping families navigate through a crisis situation, we do take very seriously our responsibility to provide education. So many Oasis Senior Living Advisors do provide workshops and webinars in churches, in libraries, on Zoom, because we want to get as much information out there as possible for proactive planning. And you're spot on, right? What even sometimes we call them client representatives, right? But that adult child, that adult daughter or son, POA, after they get their mom or dad situated, they usually say to me, oh, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I don't want my kids to have to go through that. I am going to fill in the blank. I am going to investigate whether it makes sense to invest in a long-term care insurance policy. I'm going to make sure that I have my legal documents in place, right? So oftentimes some people kind of get to that on their own after they've gone through it. But so it's such a great question you asked, because I would love people to be more proactive in getting this information before they actually,
Absolutely.
yeah, they actually need it. So I'm really glad that I'm really glad that you asked about that.
Yeah. So take us through the steps. So tell us the website, tell us how someone connects accordingly, etc.
Yes, absolutely. So the main website is oasissenior.advisors.com. That's a good starting point because that's the main site, and you'll see a space sort of on the upper right to punch in your zip code, and then you can find the advisor closest to you. My team and I, we support what I call South Jersey. Our team name is Cherry Hill, but we cover surrounding areas. So we predominantly serve seniors and families in Burlington County, Camden County, and Gloucester County in the southern part of New Jersey. You can always reach out to me if there's anyone seeing this or hearing this that's local. My number is 856-576-8983. But again, we are in over 33 states. So if you're, as I know, this reaches audiences far and wide. If you're somewhere outside of the South Jersey area, a good starting point is to visit the website at oasissenior.advisors.com and then find the advisor that's closest to you.
Amazing. So tell us some parting words and to encourage our CarePod audience, and again, how you inspire families.
Yeah, oh, that's such a huge question, but I guess I would just continue where you left off your last question, which is, how do we help more families to be proactive? Depending on when this airs, I will just say we're heading into holiday season, right? So we're coming into Thanksgiving. There's so many holidays. We're jam-packed on holidays between September and December. When you're with family, this is the time, like, to make eye contact with some of these topics and have these questions, right? Understand what your loved one's wishes are. It's stuff that we don't want to talk about, right? But you have to talk about it. You have to talk about it. If legal documents are not in place, there's no POA in place, talk about it, name it, figure out a plan to get that done. If you've kind of been worried about a loved one, but you're like, I think she's okay, but I'm not sure, have a conversation. Don't look away from it. You have to really make eye contact.
Face it.
So I would just say, look, we're nearing holiday season. You're with family, have some difficult conversations, and be proactive and take next steps to get the information you need to potentially avoid a crisis down the road.
Absolutely. Having the difficult conversation. Yes, yes, yes. Well, thank you so much. This has been really informative. It's necessary, fulfilling work. And the fact that it's free to families is an incredible service offering. So I really appreciate you taking the time on not only behalf of yourself, but of Oasis as well.
I appreciate the invitation. It was nice to speak with you, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Great information right from the source. For more information on how to caregive like a boss, check out impactfulcaregiving.com. Want to be a guest on the show? Contact us at CarePod at impactfulcaregiving.com.